Hello and welcome to the First Generation Millionaires podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr. I am so excited that you are here today. This is for the conscious business founder who is essentially going first in their lineage and their generation to create success on their own terms. And today I am joined by a really incredible woman that I am so excited to dive into our conversation today. Her name is Sarah Lloyd. She is a PR expert, a podcast host, and an editor of a really incredible magazine. And she describes herself as a storytelling alchemist, which I'm also excited to dive into a little bit more because we are just so values aligned. And I know that she's going to share so many important messages in today's episode. So firstly, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. It's so amazing to be in your space again.
Yay. I love that. I can never say the word, but the reciprocal energy, because I've recently been is that the word? Yep. I've recently been a guest on Sarah's podcast, which is the Shameless podcast. And it's, again, just highlighted how much, how important these conversations are in really pushing things forward and healing things for us as women so that we can take over the world and make it better, right?
100%.
Yeah. But so obviously I've introduced you, Sarah, but I'd love for you to dive a little bit deeper into, your journey, why you've created what you've created and what kind of positions you as the go-to expert for this topic.
Well, it's really funny you say expert. I find that title really
too much pressure.
I feel like I need to really make peace with that title, right? But I've been in PR and communications for 27 years, so the whole of my adult life, right? So, but
I think that qualifies you as an expert. I think we need to
maybe
take that one.
Yeah. So, if that's not a certificate, I don't know what is. Basically, I started my kind of career in. I worked in defence. I worked in a press office. I learned kind of the basic back in the day when there were fax machines and photocopiers and all of the glue sticks that we used to use in the press world. And then I moved through various different versions of corporate roles. So I learnt my trade in corporate, in defence, in construction, in all the masculine spaces.
Yeah, we have that in common, don't we? Because a lot of my businesses were, or my corporate background was in like telecoms, construction, rail, not very glamorous. But I think there's also an element of refreshing directness that comes with working in those environments.
I think it's really good grounding, right? I mean, I was surrounded by men who had been, they'd been journalists and real old school, smoking in the office, that kind of vibe. And there was me and a couple of other women. And it was really interesting because they did see us as dolly birds, being completely honest. And every time I've ever been in a PR role in a corporation, you had the sales guys who were the men sales and the women who were off playing with the glitter doing PR and marketing. And we were always
I'm thinking of Mad Men, the program.
Yes, very much. It really is very true to life, unfortunately. And of course there was always a man who was running the department and we were all his ladies doing the work. And they used to joke at us because we'd go off, we'd take the press to lunches because that's how it was done through the drinking and kind of lunching culture at the time. And, they thought they couldn't work out why we were always off with the journalists and taking them out for drinks and stuff. And it's like, well, we're the ladies that use the glitter and the colouring pens, right? We're just here for decoration. But what was really interesting, kind of going completely off topic, and we've already come up with this whole we're quite scattered, but also we bring back to the point.
To touch on that, actually, that is the feminine way, though, isn't it? Building, as much as we're seen to be, it's an underestimated skill set. Building relationships is the true measure of success for me, because it's about longevity in business. And I was exactly the same as you. I would, win contracts and win hearts and minds through just having conversations and playing the long game when it came to nurturing those relationships rather than just buy my 100%. Stuff,
And like
which is a
I like
lost
the way
art.
you mention like the long game, because that's basically what PR is all about. PR is the long game. It's
Yeah,
about having relationships with the right people in the right places so that the right stories arrive.
yeah.
And I've, as I was saying, I kind of spent my probably 13 years of my career in corporate, for either in-house or in an agency where we had clients. So I was either in-house in a department that had agencies reporting to me, or I was an agency being. So I've done basically both sides of the fence, if you like. So I know how it all works every which way. And in addition to that, I was made redundant back in 2017. So I basically got to the top of my ladder. I was the global head of thought leadership and PR for a number 2 technology company. I had Asia, US and Europe reporting into me. I was my whole kind of job was all about coming up with creative ideas to sell, to promote our products effectively. So I was often doing surveys, and at the time when I left, it was a video conferencing company, and I'd come up with this idea of like, let's talk about how video can really help millennials and people that want to work from home and people that, want a flexible way of working. And we did this whole survey, and it was an amazing success. We got loads of coverage all over the world. And then I won an award for that.
Mm.
And then I had a new boss come in. He basically said, we're not focusing on that anymore. We want people back in the office.
Yeah.
So, okay, fair enough. I got made redundant. The role got made redundant. They were focusing mainly on product. And then 2 years later, we had the pandemic. So I was kind of ahead of the curve. I was like, I like to think that I've always
I
been quite
love that.
innovative, and like
Yes.
I had that foresight. So yeah, I find that
Yeah.
funny
Well,
now.
I bet somebody else took credit for that idea during COVID.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so there was a lady that worked for me, and I know that she was quite successful through COVID. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
happy for her because she learned from me. So it's all
Yeah.
good.
And that's
But
it. It's about
yeah,
tapping into that abundance, isn't there? There's no end of creative innovation and inspiration as women that we can tap into with our beautiful feminine energy. And it's just knowing that it will come back to you karmically in some way or another.
100%. 100%. But it's a really interesting time, because when he made me redundant, it was also coincided with, so kind of alongside all of the corporate stuff, I had just had 2 children. So I had both my girls in my corporate job. So made the most of I didn't actually make the most of the maternity leave. I went back to work after 8 months because I was so driven and
Yeah.
focused on my work, and had these 2 babies. And I was like, what the hell do I do with it? These are unknown. I'm going over here where I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I had postnatal depression. I was not in rejection of them, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And, I hadn't been around children,
It's very
and
overwhelming, isn't it?
yeah. And
I found,
I'd had kids late as well. I was like
yeah.
35 when I started having my children. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, 40, 43, just had, like, yeah, we're good. We got loads of time. But I do understand what you mean, because I'd always wanted kids. And yet when I had children, I was like, my whole identity, my whole life has been wrapped up in my corporate identity and success in other people's, views. Like, I got my master's and I got my great corporate career, that when that was taken away, it's very confronting, isn't it? It's like,
100%.
what
Yeah.
I did not know what the hell to do with myself, not having the structure, not having a purpose, not being able to essentially wear that mask every day, get dressed and leave the house. I felt so alone and just completely discombobulated. Like, it was so bizarre to me. And obviously no one else is around either. Like, everybody else is at work living their purpose, supposedly. And I think that's what came up for a lot of people during COVID, didn't it? as well. It was like kind of likening it to COVID, which sounds really awful because we're totally grateful for the experience. But I resonate with that so much. And yet I'm obsessed with my kids. So I don't think it is a measure of, whether you're a good mom or whether, any of those things. It's just a new identity, isn't it?
It was such I see it as a splintering of the individual. Like it was a real, like Lucy, my eldest, when she came along, I was like, yeah, I can cope with this. And I had the big money, I had the big job, the big money to pay for the big nursery. So she went off to nursery. I'd pick her up, put her to bed, have the Friday off, kind of spend the whole of Friday looking at each other like, what are we doing here? Like, don't know what to do with you.
I have that now with Aria, and I swear to God she's judging me because I'm usually like breastfeeding whilst on a laptop, and she's probably like, what is this bitch doing? Like, honestly, she just does not know. She's covered in sick as well. Like, are you gonna clean that up? Like, this is awkward. Like, so I don't think that ever goes away.
No, and I think that so that Friday was always she'd just get angry at me because she wanted to be at nursery because she liked the nursery
and she's
people.
used to being overstimulated, isn't she? And having that.
So she's like, what's going on? Who are you? Why are you like? Why is bloody Peppa Pig on all day?
Where is my schedule?
Exactly. But I mean, we had a great NCT group, and it goes back to that female piece around. Like we had an amazing circle of women that we were, messaging in the middle of the night, like you do. Like these, that I don't speak to many of them anymore, but there have always been circles of women around me, and I didn't appreciate that until I started the work that I do now. But back at that, so the girls I was doing my corporate job. I was heavily pregnant when I did the big kind of survey that I was telling you about, the big project, heavily pregnant with Amy. I'd spent loads of time working with the founder of the business. So I was really kind of like, I don't know, I made it, right? So like you were successful or whatever you want to call it. So I was hanging out with the right people and heavily pregnant, and then won this award, and then this guy comes in and basically says your role's redundant. And at the time I had been on the side because what was happening is that the thought leadership piece, the ideas, the creative stuff, they'd kind of gone, well, that was great, but we don't really want to focus on that anymore. We want to focus on box shifting. So my role became kind of like backseat. It was put on the back seat because
it feels like what they're saying is that you're redundant.
Wasn't important.
Basically,
Like... So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to use this opportunity to go and do something I want to do. And at the time I'd found Rebecca Campbell, Rise Sister
I love
Rise.
her. Yeah.
So I was reading her. My friend, I was struggling with this postnatal depression. So it got to a point where with Amy, like Lucy, it was great. Amy, she was the kid that broke me. Like cracked me open.
That born child will test you.
Oh my God, she still does. But she was the one that was like, I couldn't even, I couldn't perform. I would get home and I would be on the floor with anxiety, not able to join group calls, not able to just not able to be the person that I had been.
Yeah.
And the mask really fell away.
So it's because it's so interesting to me, like this corporate persona, but it's essentially all of the attributes that you have been rewarded for probably your whole life around being a good girl, being responsible, being all in, like doing the work, like part of a team. Suddenly all of that is stripped back and none of it matters. Yeah. And equally, like you say, I had the same pressure in corporate in that I prided myself that I would go further than anybody else, that I was part of the team. I remember going to a tribunal miles away. I lived in Portsmouth and it was all the way in Essex, something like 10 days after I'd had the baby. And I was like, it's fine because no one else would do what I do. No one else cares as much. And you know what? When it actually then came down to it, like yourself, and I couldn't work, my mum was sick, the level of F's that my business had to give for me in return to all of the sacrifice was zero. And it was like, Interesting. So actually all of those things that have validated me over the years and made me feel worthy, actually in the grand scheme of it, none of that is conditional for love from my children. They don't care
No.
if I'm organized. They don't care if I'm on time. They don't care if I'm like committed to the team and doing all the things. They just care about snacks, um, ensuring
And
that they're loved,
cuddles.
and yeah, and all of the things that you would do anyway without even thinking. It's like suddenly it gets to actually be very stripped back and simple. It's
Yeah.
so interesting how that works, I think. What are your
And
thoughts on that?
and that, well, my thoughts are is that's exactly what happened. So I was, this role was made redundant. And meantime, I was off learning how to do energy work and realized like I just had this massive activation around my Reiki. I had black tar like going up my legs when every time I went into the office. It just felt, I just felt like
What
bogged
is that?
down. Where it was,
I need to
it,
know more about that.
it was just like so I had a Reiki activation. First of all, just like rewind, sorry. I'll get to my point, I promise. I postnatal depression, a friend referred me to a vortex healer. Never knew what that was. She read my astro chart. She gave me flower remedies. She did Reiki and vortex healing on me. We removed this big kind of ball of energy that was stuck in my womb.
Yeah.
Around it was an ancestral postnatal depression wound that we have in our family that we removed. And then at that point, and I'm not sure how woo I can go, but I was given guidance to work with the angels and to learn Reiki. So I went off. I was spinning on my chair at this point at work. So I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to spend the money that I'm earning and go and learn this thing called Reiki, whatever that is. So I went and learned. I got my level 1 and level 2 very quickly. I got my master a year later. So I am now a full Reiki master. But it's not something I really shout about. It's just something that I use and I do. And at the time, I was going into the office with this, like, my body was telling me that I needed to quit. After I'd had the girls, the first pregnancy, I had 3 failed epidurals. So I had 3 lumbar punches and my back just went to shit, basically. And then after carrying the babies and the car seats and pushing the prams and stuff, my body was just didn't like it. But before I'd had the baby, my back kept going. So it was just literally just moving in the wrong direction and my back just went. And I remember being bent over in half for about a week and, diazepam. And it was just all muscular. It was like you say, it's also psychosomatic. It's muscular. My body was saying, you've got to stop basically being all the things to everyone. Exactly like you just said. It was like,
it's like
even through my pregnancy.
Isn't it? Metaphysical symptom of our root chakra, which is all around like pressure that we put on ourselves as
100%.
women.
And I have an open root chakra based on my human design, so I'm even worse. Like, I have to figure out whose it is.
Pressure. I'll take your pressure, your pressure, your pressure. Yeah.
So yeah. But I mean, I didn't know any of this at the time. I was just like, my back is annoying me. I can't do what I need to do. This is really frustrating. And I couldn't surrender. But then when the girls came along and then my back went again, I ended up in hospital. It was kind of, well, this is time. I need to kind of pay attention to this. And I realized that, and just before I was made redundant, I was getting vertigo. I had back pain, I had high functioning anxiety. I was getting all of the things and I'm still not listening.
I'm still trying to push through. No, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Isn't that so interesting? Like your body is literally repelling your lifestyle and your conscious choices and you're still trying to push through.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we do, right? Because we're conditioned that way.
Yes. And like I say, we're validated that way.
100%.
For doing those things, yeah.
So that's basically my corporate story. And then redundancy happened, 40th birthday. I went to my husband and we'd gotten married in between the two children, and we hadn't given ourselves a honeymoon. So we went to Las Vegas for a week. Dropped the
Yay.
children off with my mum. I mean, I love Las Vegas. I used to do a lot of work there as well. I'd go to all the big trade shows there, but it was
Yeah.
lovely to go there and show my husband, you know, what I love about the place. And we went, and I remember sitting, we were just about to go on the helicopter into the Grand Canyon. And I was sitting with this kind of, I either take voluntary redundancy or I can take a sidestep in the business and learn and go and work in channel marketing.
Yeah.
I've done PR all my life, man. Why would I go and work in channel marketing? Like, seriously.
Yeah.
I was sitting there going, for me, it's a no-brainer, but I needed his not permission, but his agreement.
Yeah. Well, you're a team, aren't you? And
Effectively, yeah.
that's what a lot of there's, you know, I came up in the Boss Babe era where it was almost like sod everybody else, like 90s Spice Girl, you don't need a man, da da da. But actually, we are meant to like just be together in union, like the divine feminine, the divine masculine, working together as a team and as a family unit. That is how you take all of your goals to the next level. It isn't by doing everything alone. So I love that you, like you say, you're a team. You need to be cohesive in the approach that your family is taking next, and that needs to be celebrated more, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I used to be scared of asking. Like, it sounds really daft, but first of all, I went on retreat like before my 40th birthday, kind of rewinding. And I was on a work trip, and Rebecca Campbell was holding her first retreat to Glastonbury. I was reading her book, and I was like, I'm really called. I need to go and be in this woman's energy. And I don't know why, didn't have a clue. So I just was like, oh, book.
Yeah.
I'm off for 5 days. See you later. I remember messaging him from Amsterdam airport because I was there for work. And I said, I've done something. I'm really sorry. I should have checked with you first, but I need this. The kids are little. I haven't had a break since they were born. I need to go on this thing. So it was the first time I'd been away from the girls, and they were both, Lucy was like 3 and Amy was about 1.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, I have to do this for me. And he was like, of course you do. You need to go. So I was like, well, I'm kind of going anyway, but yeah, sure, thanks. So I went.
It's amazing how capable they suddenly are, isn't it? I went to a retreat in California when the baby before last was around that kind of like 9 months, 1 year, 5 kids. And honestly, the fact that I got there, I was like, I don't care if I come home and my house is burned down. Like the kids will, as long as they're all okay physically, like everything else can go to shit. I don't care because the same, I needed to go. And yet when I came back, it was like, oh, hi, you're back there. And like, no one cared. I was like, I thought you were all going to fall apart. And actually they were absolutely fine. And I think my girls actually like stepped up and helped out. And I'd written this like daily plan, and I'd prepped and got all the uniforms and the activities ready. And it was like, yeah, no big deal. Everything's fine. Yeah. No one died. So I'm like,
yeah, there is that, isn't there? Like, yeah. But even now, like as mine are older, anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, so I went to this retreat, met a beautiful circle of women, like 20 odd women, sat in Glastonbury, was initiated into the priestess kind of energy, and met these amazing women, and just their stories were just so powerful, and they were game changing for me because I hadn't been in that situation. I hadn't been in a circle of women like that who were loving and caring and compassionate for each other in a very, very long time. And like I had great friends, but we would sit there and we would bitch and we would comment and we would be very nasty about other women. And actually I realized that was just, what was that? Like, how awful. And we were in this space. I cried for about a week. I found my feminine that had been hiding. And that all then coincided with this job offer. We went to Vegas. I was sitting there and said, look, I have to go alone. I need to leave. I can't stay where I am. I'll take the redundancy. And it came back to the office received their redundancy, and despite like my mum, my dad, my even my like line managers were like, what are you doing? Stay. Like, why are you leaving? You've got 2 small children. Like, what are you thinking?
This is the dream. Why aren't you grateful?
Well, exactly. But there was one story that, and this is where the shameless stories piece comes from. There was this guy, we're waiting for the helicopter, and we saw the pilot came out. He had white hair. He looked really quite, distinguished. And he was proper redneck, come on, get on my helicopter. And it's like, we're in this helicopter going into the Grand Canyon. And he was like, right, we're just about to dive. But first of all, I want to tell you this story. He said, I bet you think I've been flying this helicopter all my life. And I'm like, I really hope you have, because we're about to go into the Grand Canyon. And he was like, he said, basically, I used to work in a technology company. I used to sit in a big cube office looking out into the city, and he said one day this medivac helicopter landed outside the office to attend to an incident, and he said, and it sparked something in me. And I was like, okay. He said, basically, I'd always wanted to be a helicopter pilot when I was a kid, and this guy landing his helicopter outside of my office made me then go and check out what it meant to be a pilot. So he said, off the back of that, I went off, I learned how to be a pilot, I got my hours, I left my job, and now every day I fly into the Grand Canyon 4 times a day. I am living the dream, baby. And it's like, he said, do you think,
an
when do you think
chain of events as well, something that would be insignificant actually 100%. Changed the whole trajectory.
And that's basically where the idea of my podcast came from, because there are moments in time, I call them the sliding door moment. Like, there are moments where you can go left or right. You make a conscious choice to do something different. And those are the moments in time that really can change the trajectory of your life. Like you say, he said he'd been flying into the canyon for like 3 years, and he was in his 60s. So he said it's never too late to, change your stars. It's never too late to do something different with your life. And that's what made it, that's the clincher. It was, I can stay where I am and I can be comfortable with the money, or I can go and try and do something really cool. And that's what I did. I took redundancy, ended up connecting with
there, Sarah.
Did you?
Yeah, because like full body chills. It started in my toes. I was like, oh, interesting, because something in him obviously felt called to share that story at that moment. I'm sure he's not reciting the same story 4 times a day for 3 years. But as we were talking earlier, when you were saying like level of woo, like I'm totally there. I think, people are messengers, aren't they? And if our angels can't communicate with us directly, or they have been trying to, i.e. through your health challenges and through these curveballs and setbacks, they will quite literally grab a hold of you and send you somebody who is going to tell you one more time in a way that you will fully hear. And at a point in time, like to be on that helicopter with that guy at that time talking about that subject, that is not a coincidence.
No, it's not. Like, yeah. And we'd been talking about it over breakfast before we got on the helicopter. I was like, and funnily enough, our like wedding song, the song we danced to, was playing in the background. Like, there's all the little tiny little signs. I was definitely tuned into something higher than us. And I was like, yeah, okay, great, so we'll go home. And then I was met with all the doubters, like, are you sure you want to do this? And it's like, well, what else what have I got to lose? I'm quite tenacious and scrappy. So I went out, I got myself a part-time corporate job doing a maternity cover thing, and started my own business. And then after that, connected with a lot of the women that were in that circle that I met in Glastonbury, and started helping them tell their stories in the press, in podcasts, whatever they needed, because like I said, you women, it's no good sitting in a circle and talking about this stuff, because other women need to know that they're not alone. Other women need to know that this goes on, that, you can make a choice. You don't have to sit with the cards you've been dealt. You can pick another one whenever you want.
And you're
So
that kind of that medium that helps them to amplify their message, which I absolutely love, because that's come through very organically from a place of service, where you've got a skill set that comes very naturally to you that will enable other women to amplify their missions. And that is just such a beautiful thing. It's not like, oh, I retrained and just thought this will be a fun way to make money. And I think we're
no,
very aligned in that. For me to become a business coach, it wasn't from a place of like, oh, I could make money here. It was because I didn't even know it was a thing. It's something I've
yeah,
been doing intuitively since I was 4, where I was like, oh, I can kind of see the moving parts that other people can't see and identify the opportunities. But what I like to think is, in me lifting other women up to make more money, helps them to increase their impact, but also make their business sustainable.
yeah.
Because if they're just getting by, who wins in that situation? So I love that amazing things can happen when you're just coming from a place of wanting to help.
Yeah, 100%. And that, I mean, that is it's been an interesting ride. And I'm sure any entrepreneur that's listening will also probably, there's been bumps, there's been pricing, there's been grumpy clients that expect something and, you just can't deliver, or,
Yeah,
there's an expectation. So that is something that I think it's a baptism of fire being a founder of your own business, but
yeah.
also, there's so much growth. Like, I would never have grown like have,
You have to
will.
shed, don't you?
Yeah,
You have to shed that
100%.
corporate version and then come through as like this inner bad bitch that you never knew was there.
Yeah, 100%. And it's great modeling for our kids as well. Like, I mean, my husband, he's still got a 9 to 5 job and he still works in the corporate environment, whereas I'm a bit more flighty. But I
Yeah,
think I love the fact that we can both show, just by what we're doing, that you can choose whatever path suits. You don't
yeah,
have to subscribe to get a job, off you go on that
yeah.
ladder. You can be entrepreneurial if that's what if that's how
Yeah.
that's what's in
And
you,
I think everybody should. That's the thing. Like we were talking earlier about energy kind of offline, and saying how it can equally, though, when women have stories to share, because of just the nature of how things have been for us around here for the last, couple of thousand millennia. Um, Typically, some of those stories can be quite heavy. And, we've all been through some stuff as part of that shifting paradigms and expanding into the full capabilities of what women can do. That's going to piss some men off, as we know, in the patriarchy and the things that have been celebrated previously. That can be a lot of energy to hold, and it's about protecting and grounding yourself in that, isn't it?
Yeah,
So that it doesn't overwhelm you. And I feel like every time we almost liberate a woman and we start to say no, to things that we previously would have said yes to, that's how we heal ourselves, the collectives, heal our family trauma, and essentially make the world a better place with no pressure at all. But I do think that that is how things are going to be resolved in the world, is by
100%.
women healing.
And I think as well, it's a delicate balance, because even just like a recent thing that's happened to me, I was invited to go to an event, a festival at the end of the month, to hold space, to facilitate a storytelling circle. And
Mm,
there was just something in my body just didn't feel quite right. Like when I got the invitation, it was a full body yes. Like, yes, I was in my yes. I want to, yes, I'm do everything that is thrown at me. But then I realized that there is an element of, you need some discernment around the yeses that
yeah,
you're saying, the things you're saying yes to, right? Because what I
because you're a
also
light worker, so of course everybody's going to want a piece of that.
Exactly. And that's another piece that I'm definitely working through with the Shameless Stories podcast and book, and and PR clients, right? So it's understanding the ones that you can help, and it's also
Yeah,
understanding the ones that want to be helped and will be helped, and those that are just coming to you for ego, lip service, whatever,
yeah, or
so that
validation on
that
their
really
story.
is that really is like a thing that comes up. But also, where was I going with this? So I was invited to this event, and I really sat with it, and it was like, the ego part of me thinks that I should go, I really want to go and dance in the, in the forest and stand there and hold this space. But I'm equally scared witless because I haven't done an in-person thing like that for a little while. But then I was like, well, where's the fear coming from? And the fear, I think, was coming from the fact that actually what's going on at home is that my daughter is going off. She's got 2 sleepovers, one after the other. She's only 9. She's never done it before in her life. And the last time she slept over, my mum fell ill and I wasn't there. I was with my mum. So there's a feeling around, for me, I've had to let that event go because I want to be there for my daughter. I want to heal whatever she's still carrying from that event. Like, my husband will say, no, she's not bothered by it, but I feel like there's still an imprint of that situation that happened it happened a year ago, and I want to kind of heal that wound for my daughter. So there's the thing, it's like, there was the old Sarah would have gone, oh God, I've got to look after the children or whatever, like, or people that I was around. But then there's a part of me that's like, am I doing the wrong thing stepping away from this festival to focus on my family? Well, actually, the whole reason why I designed the way that I design my business is to work around the family. You're a mum, like,
100%.
you
And I think
can't.
equally, we know when things are a good return on our energy and when they're not. And intuitively, there may be a reason why you're not meant to be at that event. And I think there's different seasons. So for me, this year, baby's young. Like, yes, it's just not subscribing to that pressure, is there, that if I'm not visible, if I'm not everywhere doing all things and, still being committed to being this trailblazer, that my business is going to disappear. It's about having that self-trust that I'm in a season where actually that is not a priority for me now, but equally I'm still going to get the success that I want, because it isn't about how much energy and how much I'm pushing to get it. And that's been a very much a growth for me this year, because I had a lot of plans and then the universe was like, no, bitch. And I got sick, baby got sick, and it slowed me right down. And yet my business has continued to thrive because I'm still showing up in the places where it matters, which is like having these conversations, building connections, having relationships. And it's having that trust, isn't it, that you've planted enough seeds that there are always going to be more opportunities. There isn't going to be more time with your kids. So actually, that's a really empowered choice.
Yeah. And I really sat with it and I felt quite sad about it, really. But then it was like, well, you know what? You just spent a weekend working at an event. You don't need to be at all the events. It's a bit like what you were saying earlier with because I can go to Essex, I'll go to Essex. It's that situation again, but just with wearing a different coat, right? It's like a different, we can create corporate.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Although I talk about money and people are like, oh, it's quite literally about the money and it's about like charging more and, holding that self-worth. It really isn't. It's the sneaky ways in which, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And money is symbolic. It's not even about the money. It's about, our ability to receive what we feel worthy of, the conditioning that has kept us stuck and, fully living our best lives. So it comes up again and again and again as an entrepreneur, but just in different ways. And it's about you having the radical self-awareness and discernment to connect the dots on, actually, what am I saying in this moment? Why is this coming up? That's the journey, and it's fucking exhausting at times.
Yeah, that's why we all need each other.
Yeah. I totally agree. So I wanted to talk about, because again, so passionate about what you're doing around. So you've got your podcast and you've got your collaboration book, which are essentially conduits to allow women to share their messages and start to reclaim the narrative around what it means to hold this shame and how we alchemize it, which I love, into something that's really powerful and amplifies your message. So can you talk more about where the inspiration for those came from and how you facilitate that for your clients?
So I last year I had to let go of quite a lot of my business because, and we've talked about this as well, because my mum had a massive stroke. So I I chose to drop quite a lot of clients. I dropped a bunch of email. Like my mum went into hospital. We were given kind of the chat about the DNR, and I was like, right, well, I need to be completely present in this situation. So I sent an email to the clients I was servicing at the time. And to be honest, I'd gotten to a point where a lot of the clients I was working with, I just didn't feel like I could help them, but I wasn't able to have the grown-up conversation of, it's not me, it's not you, it's me. You know, we probably need to like draw a line under this relationship. And what actually happened was the universe did it for me. So mum had her stroke. I then sent an email and just said, listen, I'm not working on anything for the next 2 weeks. Sorry, you're not, without being mean, this is more important.
You're not my priority.
So most clients were like, absolutely fine, crack on. And there was a feeling, I felt shame around doing that. Like, oh my God, I've got to let down all these clients. I'm just going to because I'm putting myself and family first. There was shame around that. And I was like, hang on a minute, this isn't good, because I shouldn't feel this if I want to spend time with my family. I should be able to do that without feeling that guilt and shame.
Yeah.
So there were lots of little instances like that. But that particular story at the time, there was a client who just messaged me like 3 days later and said, so how are you getting on with this thing that I've asked you to do? Oh, by the way, how's your mum? And it's like, oh my God, my mum could have died. Like, she could be dead. And you've just rocked.
I've got literal chills again, Sarah, because of the synergy. So I literally had a dream about something that happened, and it was so along the same conversations of what you're saying. So at the beginning of the year, I was still planning to, run my mastermind. I had everything in place. I had a couple of one-to-one clients that I was working with. Again, because as a, solopreneur with the best intentions in the world, I'd had terrible health last year, terrible health this year, and you got to earn money. I'm the sole income provider for me, my family, but I'd had enough recurring revenue in place to kind of allow me to have some sense of maternity leave with the baby. And I was literally dreaming about this last night because of that reason, that shame. Because what happened was, as soon as I was induced early, so I'd had all my best laid plans, and I was going to be working until after Christmas, and then do a couple of bits in January, and then baby was here, so that's great. But what happened, she obviously got induced like 3 weeks early, and it all went to shit. As much as I had measures in place like guest coaches and support team, I had at a time, and I literally was going to do a post today on it, because it still hurts me as a wound, because as I'm sitting there in the ICU with my baby wondering if she's going to die, I had clients left and right defaulting on their contracts. And at a time when I should have had sisterhood, and I should have had I couldn't believe like the behavior of these women, that they would choose that moment and also to default and put my family in a state of financial jeopardy when I needed that community that I'd poured so much into the most. But instantly I felt shame. I was like, I've done something wrong as a coach. I've done something wrong as a mentor for them women to reject me in this way. I obviously have not done enough to instill good basic kindness in these people, that they would, and this was thousands of pounds of monthly recurring revenue. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to miss out on £500. It was thousands. And then equally like be really nasty about it. And straight away I made that a me problem, until, like you say, you have to sit there and really I'm going to do a post on this, Sarah. You've inspired me, because again, I've held on to that because I was worried, like, I can't put this on socials because people would think I'm obviously a rubbish coach if women are not going to pay their contracts. And it's like, actually, no, that's a them problem. And
no, and
more healing.
And it was I had three things came up around the same time, similar. So there was one client who was chasing me on the work. Have I followed up all that stuff that I said, after I blatantly said to her I wasn't going to do any more work for 2 weeks, and I will get to the follow-ups when things are stable. And I made that really clear. She completely ignored me and said, so how's it all going? Blah, blah, blah.
So anyway, about me.
So yeah, so she like, and this is another thing that I've realised is that you'll get this too, is I knew when I took the work on with her that she was going to be she was a lesson.
Yeah.
She was definitely, I knew she was coming. She was going to give me a lesson. She was a lesson. And I just knew it in my bones. And I could have said no to her, but I didn't, So
Yeah.
again, discernment. So she like proved all my kind of, sacral right. And I just got quite annoyed with her. And then I had another lady who was fussing over her monthly payment for a membership, which was like, it wasn't hundreds of pounds.
Nominal.
It was
Yeah.
nominal money. So that then became a headache. And then I had 2 events that I'd actually paid to go to and speak at. And I basically said, can I get a refund or can you reimburse me? Because, I'm dropping all, I'm just trying to recoup money that I've spent, that I'm not, not going to be there. And basically I got this message saying, really sorry about your mum, but no refunds. And it's kind of, like how like off a cliff do you need to be for someone to actually show compassion? And that's what I also realized was like, there are people out there who are dressed up
Well,
in
they're
love and
living
light,
in lack. They're living
but
in
then
lack, aren't they? And you've got to
yeah
give these people compassion because,
mm-hmm.
like I say, I didn't chase up any of those people for their contracts. And I was
yeah
like, fine, okay, I see you. If you don't want to pay and you don't want to honor your commitments and you don't want to support me like I've supported you, I am not going to spend any more energy chasing and trying to be this boss babe. For me,
yeah
my energy and my peace is worth so much more. And even if that puts me in a difficult position temporarily, I would rather cut ties with you and have the money with pleasure, because what you are
yeah
sowing in response to that is going to be felt for generations, because
yeah
you are not healed, you are not abundant, you are
yeah
essentially not a good person in most ways. So you have to believe that those people that are living in lack, it's just an opportunity for their growth, and give them compassion.
and that's exactly how I behaved. I would let it, I cut the ties and let it, I always want to be in integrity, but then I also know not everybody operates from that place either. So that has
Yeah.
been a lot of big lessons for me in the last year
Yeah.
or so. And I've even forgotten the question that you asked me.
No, well, I
Oh
think
wait, where
it's
did
just
the
like we
shame
just
come
need
from?
like a topic and then we talk about it so much. But because there's so much gold in that, just like having the conversations, having a coffee together with other women. Because what I was going to say was, it does actually circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning, about how business is about the long-term relationships. And
Yeah,
yet there's a lot of women out here building businesses like they're going to be dead at the end of the year. Like they are burning through their audience. They are burning through their reputation. They don't care, because they are living in such a state of lack and this hustle culture, who is not who we're meant to be at
no,
our very core. But again, the only way that we can do anything about that is by just shining our light, showing a
yeah.
different way, building our communities in a different way that will hopefully attract a different kind of women. And then, we pay it forwards in that way.
And I mean, that's the thing that I teach people with the PR, and obviously
Yeah.
going back to the Shameless Stories podcast. So
Yeah.
that all came about because I was of my relationship with shame, because I was feeling
Mm.
shame in, I'd worked through the shame that I had around being a mother. I wrote a book about that, that all kind of that awakening moment around being a mother and what that meant, and actually
Mhm.
knowing that all women have that mothering energy within them, whether they are physical mothers or they're mothering other women. There's just so much,
Mm.
there's so much to be stripped back with regards to that. So I
Mhm.
thought, what I want to, the thing that I really found is that I was in a container with a lot of other women who were telling their stories and, why they'd set up their business. And the thing that really struck me was, often we have these stories that attach to us in our childhood, like, not good enough, not, not seen, be quiet, blah, blah, all the things, right? So every single person that comes on my podcast has talked about something that's happened around childhood, about worthiness. And we're all of a certain age. And I just wanted to give people a space to talk about those things, because often, you know, there is healing in speaking, and that is a modality that, like, you don't have to go to a therapist and have counseling around. You just, sometimes it's just sharing a story and sharing a lived experience with somebody else can help to transmute any stories that we're carrying with us. So it was meant, you know, Shameless Stories, the podcast, was all about the sliding door moment, like my moment with my helicopter pilot. I mean, there's been many more moments after that, but that particular one was quite a big pivotal shift for me. And there's always going to be those moments for people where they've decided to go, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to leave my husband. I'm going to leave my job. And it's always to do with a big life event. And people, we all live big life events. You know, you can't go through life without, you know, tumbling over one, right? So I wanted to give people a space to do that. And working in the PR and the media space, the media doesn't always want to talk about that stuff. And it was a frustration of mine, because I'd pitch people's stories to people like the Daily Mail, and I'd think that there was an amazing story there, but they'd be like, well, we want more drama, we want more, you know, destruction, whatever. They
I've had
like to
this
start.
battle myself, and
Well,
I've
you
said this
like,
with clients.
yeah, I mean, they like the clickbait
Clickbait.
negative story, but going in with a positive story, God forbid. So I wanted to give space for positive stories to be shared. And that's where I got involved with the House of Wisdom. So again, that's a new spiritual, kind of spiritually aligned magazine, where a bit
Yeah,
like
what
Soul
is
and
that?
Spirit.
Can you tell us more about that?
So House of Wisdom, it's a quarterly magazine. I'm the editor. I'm working with a lady called Buxo, who is the editor-in-chief. She wanted a magazine at events. And then we got chatting, and I was like, do you know what? There's a massive hole in the magazine space for spiritual growth. And after Spirit and Destiny and Soul and Spirit disappeared, there's space to be had. So we have now decided to create a magazine again. Like, if it's not there, build it, right? Like, so
Yes, yes.
podcast, the magazine, we're accepting editorial, we're accepting advertorial and real life stories. We're looking for sponsors. We're just trying to get this thing off the ground. But basically, they're all spaces to share people's stories. And,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's through a magazine, through a book, through a podcast, and eventually there will be retreats and in-person spaces.
That
So
sounds so
that's
exciting. And
basically where it's going.
yeah, I love that, like you say, you are creating permission and safe spaces to actually talk about the positive, because it's really hard, I think, to otherwise get traction in your business unless you are succumbing to that bro marketing tactic and the clickbait headlines and the salacious stories. I saw somebody who is essentially a women's health practitioner, and I kind of reached out to her and I was like, this is so disappointing, like what you've done. But she put a social media post where it was like, I am divorcing my husband. And then I was like, oh my God, are you okay? And she
Yeah.
was like, oh no, it's just to sell this free masterclass, saying like, that's the decision I'd made before this thing happened. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened to, like, I've just got gifts and I can share them. Like, why do we have to resort to these tactics to promote and cheapen ourselves to promote something that is a beautiful healing service anyway, and the right women will be called to? Why do we, like, that really like shocked my nervous system, and I was like, I purposely don't listen to the news, and I purposely don't follow these things and read these things because I'm trying to protect my peace over here. Stop doing this, because it's just not necessary. And yet again, when I looked for press and PR features, that's all they wanted was, you know, single mom, 6 kids, women talking about wealth, and every headline was just so argumentative, so not in my voice or tone or enabling me to be part of the solution, that it really made me quite disillusioned with getting visible, because I was like, I don't want to resort to any of that. I don't want to create arguments in the comments. I just want to, maybe naively, but share positivity.
No, but
And
that's not naivety. That's the construct, unfortunately, that you've got to play within. And I like to, the media, I see it as it's like a construct, and it's up to us to You know, if we the
The
issue
narrative.
we have is that that these stories aren't always welcome. So it's
Yeah.
playing the game. It's like understanding, how do we bridge the gap? How do I get, yes, I can start talking about poor me, but where do I,
Yeah.
where can I take them with the story arc? And that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like having someone that can, one, secure opportunities that feel good and aligned, because you don't have to, just because you've got all the opportunities in the world, just because the BBC are inviting you on, doesn't mean you have to bloody go. But
Yeah.
if it doesn't feel right in the body, and I think that's the thing, it's like, it's about understanding when the opportunity is right and when it's aligned, and if it is, it flows and it feels good and all of those things.
Yeah.
And when it isn't, it doesn't. It's, and I've
Yeah.
had opportunities with clients where I you know I had a really lovely client who wanted to get her book out there, and we ended up speaking to the Express, and I'd already given her the kind of the warning of, they will turn your story into clickbait. But
Mm.
what actually happens is the headline, the reporter is out of control of that. There's no,
Yes.
they have no say on that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But as long as the article is written how you want it written, you can ignore that
Mm.
bit, because if they've created an inflammatory headline, then that's their way of getting people to eyes on your story.
Yeah.
It's like, ignore that, because people don't judge the story based
Well,
on the
you're kind
headline.
of, yeah, that's it. And then hopefully they will read it off the back of it. But it goes with the whole theme of this podcast, actually, around going fast. Because when you are saying, I want to be more visible, I want to serve at a high level, I want to make more impact, you're
Yeah,
going against the natural grain of how things are done around here. And your inspiration should be, your story should be inspiring, but it's also going to be very confronting to
yeah,
the masses who are still in the matrix, that still want to believe that everybody, conspiracy theories and everybody's out to get us.
yeah,
Your narrative doesn't fit with their lens and their paradigm of the world, so they're going to reject it. But again, even more reason why, like you say, we need to create these safe spaces where, like the podcast and your collaboration books and your beautiful new magazine, where actually we get to reclaim the
yeah,
narrative. And if you aren't a person that wants to subscribe to, every kind of conspiracy theory and that the world's all going to shit and there's no point even trying, then over here is where you will be catered and nurtured, and how we all kind of lift each other up. And what I love is, since COVID, is that so many people are moving to that kind of train of thought. I know so many women that have left corporate, that have been unleashed, that have found this new lease of life. The only thing I feel my responsibilities do is to ensure that they can make the money that allows them to be sustainable. Because
yeah,
what I can also see now, we're kind of 5 years down the line, is that a lot of people are retreating and they're returning because they just couldn't figure out the business side of their
yeah,
gifts.
yeah,
And that to me is where it's like, right, that's my Eminem, where he's like, now this looks like a job for me. That's where I now need to step in and be like, no, 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 bitch. You can't go back once you've come out of the corporate closet. You have to, like, just be supported to move yourself forwards.
well,
And
yeah.
again, I think, yeah, that's where you then kind of lift and amplify. And we've all just got this beautiful part to play, haven't we, in making the world better?
I think we all sit in I see it as like we're all in a flat but in a big circle, and we all have different gifts. We all step forward when we need to share them. And the thing that, like, just like you gave me full body chills then, because the whole thing and I've lost my train of thought again, but the whole thing is like, you know
You're
the
in a safe
aware
space, Sarah. Can you,
but the
if my listeners are listening to a manifesting generator Gemini with ADHD, they are quite used to a tangent. Don't you worry. And a side note and a backstory.
that's good then. But I guess
And I'm
that's
probably menopausal too.
yeah, exactly. Well, there's that too, right? So, but it's the I guess the thing, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. My God, yeah, this is the whole thing, right? Like, also being around people that get this. Like, that
Yeah,
was it. That was where the shame story started. Someone told me and she said, you're no longer employable. And
oh,
that felt shameful. I was like, hang on a minute. I can walk into any job. I'm very good at this. I can make myself
yeah,
indispensable in any business. And it was like, go on then. So I tried and I
yeah,
couldn't. All last year
yeah,
I applied for jobs because of mum, and I felt like I just didn't have the headspace to develop my business because of my mum. So then I
because it
stopped.
takes your creative energy, doesn't it? And it's a different kind of energy to just turning up and doing the thing. Yeah, I totally get that.
But it wasn't just mum, it was menopause, perimenopause. So all of it kind of hit me at one go. And I was like, I felt such shame and guilt that I wasn't being successful and making all the money. And like what I'd had to do was drop it all, focus on my health, focus on my mum. And then at the beginning of the year, it was like, do you know what, let's do this. And that's where like a big rebound. Well, it was actually November.
Yeah, I actually celebrate the unemployable women because we are the ones that are actually going to change the world for the better. I love the fact that I'm officially unemployable because then in those moments I've got no out. Like I have to keep going and everybody wins when that happens. Because very capable women, like you say, I know so many that have gone back to corporate because there's just too much fear around them. So I am absolutely celebrating you and so excited for this magazine and all of the spaces that you're creating. So if anybody does want to kind of be supported by you, which I absolutely think that they should. I've got my mastermind, so I'm going to be sending all the women your way because I think that you will be doing PR in a really thoughtful way that most of them won't. Because one thing I found about being a money mentor, my PR agency didn't get it. And they were trying to, you're not a financial planner, you're not a this, you're not a that. And it's like, oh. So if you can find somebody that truly aligns with your soul mission, like yourself, that is conscious and thoughtful, then absolutely they need to come and find you. So where is the best way if somebody wants to, take the next step with you? Where can they find you?
Well, best place is my website. So www.iamsarahlloyd.com or Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram. But yeah, you can drop me, there's links to booking coffees and all my offers are on there. I have got a very low level membership if people are, not in lack, but don't have the big funds to invest. I have a really beautiful community that I'm building around people that I'm teaching them how to show up, but we're also unpicking kind of what's coming up from them around visibility. So there's the visibility field, which is my membership. And then I have Alchemy in Action, which is we spend time in your business and then I help basically support you with PR. So I do it for you, with you. And I have Shameless Stories, the book. So I'm looking for beautiful stories where, sliding door moments, perspectives on shame, whatever wants to come through actually, for the Shameless Stories book, which will be, we're submitting 1st of September. So there's still a bit of time to write a chapter if you feel called. And then we're going to do a lovely launch event and all of the things. So I'm quite excited. I feel like there's going to be
definitely celebrate. I think it'll be amazing. And I'm absolutely sharing that with my communities also, because I think there is a lot of healing in reclaiming your power and owning your story. And I think 100%. that could be the block for a lot of women to truly get. And super side note, sorry, just before we wrap up, but equally when people are worried about AI and ChatGPT, this is how you overcome all of that innovation in business, because we're living in an information technology. People don't want more how to or more knowledge. They want more relatable people that they can engage with and can be serviced by. The more that you own your story, the more that you show up with authentic soul-led content, the more that you will not have to worry about any of these things from taking your business. And that comes from the work that Sarah will help you to guide you through in owning your story. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. I knew we were going to have such an incredible story. And I love all of those takeaways that have kind of been weaved in throughout everything that we've been talking about. Please do go and find Sarah, and I will absolutely be going to look at the magazine also. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share it with your business besties, because that's how we, get the word out and make the world a better place. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.